included in your materials. Are there any additions, corrections, or deletions to those minutes? Going once, twice, they are then approved as submitted. We have a section now for public comment. Is there anyone who would like to make public comment? Any public comments? Hearing none. Moving into the business items. TAD grant update. Phil is going to walk us through where we're at and what we're hopefully going to be looking at.
Sure, thank you, Judge. So our TAD grant treatment, alternatives and diversion, was due on November 2nd. We got that submitted on November 1st. I want to thank Lisa Maltoff. She really helped out a ton and actually took the lead considerably and helped Kate and I a lot with that, as this was Kate and I's first time with our TAD grant. So Lisa, thank you. Really, really helped out. I don't know that there's any other updates. What do you think? Anything to add?
The only major update would be that we did apply for $35,000 extra dollars. It's likely that that will be approved. So that will increase our grant to $238,689, including our cash match from the county. And that $35,000 will cover a half-time position that will be split between treatment court and diversion, and a little bit with CJCC to enter data, help with minuscule things, enter things into CORE, which is the DOJ reporting system, help with case management. It will be very beneficial to both programs.
The only other thing I would add, so we'll know by the end of December, get finalized updates on the TAD grant. This year, this was a different year. It was a pre-application that we did, so we largely knew what we were going to be given funding-wise when we applied in November, just a couple weeks ago. So all that was kind of done up front. And as Lisa said, we asked for some additional resources to pay for this data entry specialist, I think is what we're going to call the person, to be split 10 hours a week with diversion and then 10 hours a week with treatment court. So we'll have more updates in January on what that looks like.
And as I shared at Executive Committee, grants are tied significantly to data and providing data. So really what we're asking for a position to hire someone so we can take the data so we can keep the grants going. So it's one of those positions that will only hopefully improve our chances going forward of maintaining that grant status. Any questions of Lisa or Phil about the grant? Hearing none. MRT update. Phil.
Yes, so MRT, so just a little bit of history, moral recognition therapy, so the cognitive behavioral program that has been housed in a number of different departments here in the county. So Lisa ran it in the DA's office for a while. It was then at HHS for a while, and we in Justice Services have since taken that over. So we are working right now with DOC to recruit folks and get a pool of folks that are going to get going. Tina and Kelly from pretrial will be running our groups. Those have not started yet. We just need a couple more referrals, and we'll be ready to go. So our referral sources will be from the Department of Corrections, from treatment court, as well as from our diversion program. So the idea is folks that have what we call criminal thinking errors, that they go through this program. It's self-paced, kind of ongoing, and that they'll hopefully correct those, and that will aid in them remaining crime-free. So hopefully here soon we'll be starting our program. So there'll be Wednesday evenings in New Richmond at the Services Center. So probably have another update. Hopefully in January we can successfully say we've started and we've run this many groups, but that's where that is right now.
Questions about MRT? I describe it as really folks who don't have a conscience. With that said, treatment court case manager position update. Phil.
Thank you. So up until this week, we had a vacancy in treatment court. Our treatment court case manager position was, like I said, vacant. We were able to fill that with Kayla Stesniak. So Kayla started with our department, our pretrial, as a case manager in August. She's now going to be moving to treatment court. So that'll take effect on Monday the 21st, so here in about a week and a half. So congrats to Kayla. That does create a vacancy in pretrial for us. So hopefully either today or tomorrow we'll be able to post our pretrial case manager position and have somebody in maybe by mid to end of December. So.
Any questions about staffing? JSS partnership with UW-Madison. Phil.
Thank you. So this is something I've talked a lot about in different meetings over the last 5 or 6 months. So Supervisor Fiedler brought this opportunity to my attention back at the end of July that we could partner with University Year is the name of the program through UW-Madison. And what they do is they work with local counties, municipalities throughout the state on different projects. It's a 2 to 3 year commitment. We were selected, we applied, we were selected. And we have started. The process doesn't normally happen this quick. Typically, you apply, they match you, and it takes several months. But this is kind of based on an academic semester there, the calendar. So this semester, this fall, we started in on 2 different projects. So the first is to help identify additional residential treatment facilities throughout the state and even over in the cities to help our treatment court folks. That's the one project. The other one is sober living facilities for women. That's a struggle in the county and elsewhere. So that's the other project. So this semester we were paired with a public health graduate class master's course at UW-Madison. They've been doing some research for us and making connections. They actually did a interview with Julie Smith from Onyx House. So they're doing some background. So this is the first semester. I just formally last week had a meeting with the administration for this university year to kind of lay out what the next 2 to 3 years would look like. Kate has been a part of some of those calls as well. So here in December, kind of phase 1 will end, and then in January we will be paired up with a new set of students or faculty members at UW-Madison. And I just found this out last week. It may not necessarily be in the public health department. We could be paired with students from a psychology course or wherever. And the idea is each semester, the project will pick up where it left off with a new group of students and move through for the next 2 or 3 years. And again, the idea being that in 2 to 3 years, that these goals that we've set, increase access to residential treatment and hopefully increased access to sober living facilities for women are realized. And that may take the form of being paired with an engineering course down the road. We're not really sure what that looks like from semester to semester. I did invite one of the teams that we're working with to come and present what they've done so far in January at our January meeting. So I'll update everybody on that. But that's kind of where the project is as we sit here today. As we move forward over the next 2 to 3 years, a lot of you around this table will probably get emails from me asking to sit in on certain meetings. I've kind of held off to this point because it's just very much in the preliminary stages, but I'd like to involve everyone here to sit in and have their input on these different projects. So don't be surprised if you get an email asking to sit in on a Zoom call. I would appreciate any input and participation. I think this is a really worthwhile project, not only for projects, for us, but for the students as well. And then, we get kind of some outside opinions and views on some of these challenges that we experience.
Questions about that partnership? And thank you certainly to Supervisor Fiedler for making that suggestion to Phil and his ability to follow up and get us partnered with the university. Our partnership with APPR. Phil.
Thank you. So another project that's been kind of ongoing for the last 5 or 6 months. We were formally accepted as a learning site last week. So Shelby and I sat in on a meeting with the folks from APPR. So APPR is Advancing Pretrial Policy and Research, a group out of, I think they're out of DC, but I'm not sure. a number of you sitting around the table wrote letters of support for the project, so I really appreciate that. That helped get us accepted. So this project is 1 to 2 years of technical and implementation assistance for pretrial as we grow. Again, we're, as a civilian model, very new, not even a year and a half into this, and any support that we can receive based on best practices across the country, what is working, what isn't working, they'll be able to provide us. So Shelby will really be taking the lead on this. I don't know if I told you that, but really be taking the lead on this. You will also, a lot of you will receive some emails from me in the next 12 to 24 months asking to maybe participate in certain meetings. They, I think they made it pretty clear to us last week, Shelby, correct me if I'm wrong, that they wanted everyone in our county involved that's willing to look at how we can improve pretrial practices. So, again, you may be getting an email from me and asking to participate. So that's where we're at with that.
Any questions about that partnership and project? Possible partnership with the national network of CJCCs, Phil.
So another, this one is a little newer. So I got a kind of a last minute email last week from the Wisconsin CJCC. So most counties throughout the state have a CJCC. There's apparently a national network, which I was not aware of until I looked it up. And they have offered up the opportunity for folks to come on board and be part of this national network. It's a consortium. I looked it up. They do a lot of research. It's part of a larger organization that is mainly research-based. So I applied for us to be part of this. It's free. I don't think it's, really kind of low-hanging fruit is what I call it, an opportunity for us to see what's going on across the country with other CJCCs. So that's about the extent that I know to this point, and can provide more hopefully in January.
Yes, super.
I misunderstood what you said. You said most counties have a CJCC. Is there any just collaboration or just information sharing with the local? Pierce, Polk, St. Croix is what comes to mind. Is there any advantage of cross-pollination there, or just information sharing?
Yes, so I'm on a mailing list with coordinators throughout the state. I haven't really heard much. I did when we were at NADCP, the National Drug Court Conference in July. I did connect with a couple folks that were the CJCC coordinators from different parts of the states, but I don't know if they have formal meetings, so I can get back to you more on that. But yes,
if there is an advantage, because it's great to go national or whatever, but I just wonder locally, even do the judges think, is there information sharing that's helpful, or I don't know.
I would have to imagine there's a huge advantage to that, to see what's working in our region, and maybe what's not working. What are some things that are being discussed? I get
or best practices or ideas, or
yeah, I get the sense that maybe CJCCs all look a little bit different. Some are a little bit more formal, some less formal, some meet regularly like ours do, which is great. I know CJCCs are very instrumental with the TAG grant. They're very, very important with that. But yeah, that's a great point.
At one time, there was a statewide CJCC, and I think it's still operational, but that was under the Department of Justice. And for those that remember, when we started ours, we relied pretty heavily on Eau Claire, which was one of the early CJCCs in the state. And I still stay in communication with Judge Schumacher, who is on their CJCC, the presiding in Eau Claire. Tiana Glenna, again, came and presented at some of our early meetings. I know Pierce has one, I know Polk has one, Dunn has one, so I think Ms. Ring, that's a wonderful idea to almost look more regionally maybe than statewide about what's happening, and if there are things that might assist us, or vice versa, things that we're doing that might assist others. But good suggestion. Any other comments? Next, we're privileged to welcome back former Chief Deputy Kathy Borgschatz. She retired much against the vote of the judges in St. Croix County, and couldn't stay out of the system long and is back now assisting with a new and what I think potentially a program that might have significant benefit to those we serve, those who are in our system, and those in our community. So I'm going to turn it over to former Chief Deputy Kathy Borchatz, who's now heading up a grant on MAT.
Thank you, Judge. I've been back for about 6 weeks now. I work under Justice Services part-time, and Phil's been a great addition and a great resource for me to have. Prior to leaving the Sheriff's Office, we wrote a grant to implement a medicated assisted treatment program within the jail. We received that grant in July. It's $150,000, and it essentially pays for anything that is needed with a medicated assisted treatment program and getting it up and running. A MAT program is you mainly used to treat alcohol and opioid addictions. It's specific to alcohol and opioids because of the medications that are used. There's scientific research based that are very helpful. I'm not going to get into the medications because I would probably give misinformation. I'm not a pharmaceutical rep. I'm not a treatment provider or medical provider. But I really want to talk about what a medicated assisted treatment program can do for St. Croix County and how it can make a difference. And really, it's my 26 years of experience. From a jail deputy to a patrol deputy, investigator, we have been having conversations with folks my entire career who are ready for change. They're begging for it. Our folks do a good job in giving them support, but really we didn't have that olive branch or that continuity to get them to the next level, and we were seeing them repeat and repeat and repeat. And that's frustrating for law enforcement. Like I said, people are begging for help. They know that without a change, they're going to continue to commit crimes. They're going to continue to come back to jail. They're going to have CPS involvement. They many times have lost their kids, and without this change, they're going to be part of the criminal justice process and the child protection services. So identifying folks is initially pretty easy because a lot of them are going to self-identify. But we've also implemented a screening tool that's used at intake, and that was just implemented last week. Captain Tim Kufis has been helping me and working with me directly as my partner in law enforcement. And what I know right now after a week is that 12% are identifying that they want a MAT program already. We haven't done a campaign, we haven't done marketing, we haven't done anything in the jail besides a couple screening questions on whether they're interested. Ironically, 12%, and it's different folks, have also already admitted that they're overdosing. They've overdosed to the point of where Narcan has been used. And so without intervention, I can tell you their future is pretty bleak. This is a tax on law enforcement resources, from the crimes that they commit to investigating overdoses to the child protection services. And it's hard for law enforcement. Most of our officers have grown up in the county. They know these folks. They played Little League, they went to school, and they're going to places where maybe at one point they were actually friends with some of these folks, and that is a toll on law enforcement. So I'm passionate about it. I've been passionate about it for about 4 or 5 years, and it was really kind of unfinished business as a chief deputy because I've wanted to bring it here. But with everything, COVID, civil unrest, staffing, you've heard it all, in the sheriff's office, the timing just wasn't right. And I think it can be a great benefit to what the judges are doing, but we need this program to be voluntary. The reason it needs to be voluntary is that some of the medications are injectables, and without the voluntariness, we don't want to be injecting medications into people's arms, and because there is a risk to the program and to some of the medications. So what did the grant pay for? It pays for my salary. I'm here 20 hours a week to get the program up and running. It'll pay for the medical assessments in the jail, the AODA assessments, and we have a partnership with Programs for Change. And if there's somewhere else that these folks want to go to for treatment once they're out of custody, we'll work with that treatment provider as well. We're working with behavioral health. It's almost, the timing is perfect because the jail has went to getting a social worker from behavioral health to help us with our mental health needs within the jail. And this person has a pretty significant history in the AODA world. And I've already had conversations with her, and she was ready to start a couple days ago on the MAT program, and we're meeting later today to get some things up and running there as well. The grant will also pay for the medications. Some of the medications, the injectables, are $1,100 a shot, so they can be very expensive. Some other medications that are pill form are much cheaper, pennies on the dollar compared to what a Vivitrol shot would be. We'll also provide some pre-treatment or cognitive behavioral therapies within the jail while they're in custody, and then we'll be working to get them into treatment and counseling once they're out of custody. The program will pay for any educational treatment materials. And then once they're out, if they don't have insurance or if Badger Care, if there's unpaid expenses, the grant can help them with some of the expenses of treatment and counseling as well. This program is available for pretrial, post-conviction, probation. I think is going to probably be some of our biggest or #1 clients, because those folks are still struggling. Really, the only thing that's going to keep them out of the program is that they can't be prison bound, and we have to have them in custody long enough to get them through the assessments and the process. So we're thinking we can do that within a couple of weeks. I've been assured from Programs for Change that if an assessment is needed, we can get that done within the week. So I think that is huge, because I think the assessments have always been what stops people, or the price of them, and then the timing of getting them in a manner where they're ready to make a change. So we got some good things going. This program won't be initially available to folks that are in and out of custody overnight. There's just not enough time to assess them. Some of the medications that they would be taking, they have to go through a detox period, which folks do detox within the jail. And I think that's why DOJ looked at jails, because we do have some folks that are in there for weeks and months, and they do go through that detox period, and they are prime candidates to enter a MAT program. We will be collecting data. This is a grant. I hope that we are able to show that this is a good program that's making a difference. I've talked to several counties that have had it up and running for a while, and other counties that are just like us and getting it up and running. In Winnebago County, I believe it was Winnebago, they talked with 118 inmates, and 90 some had admitted to overdosing. So the reality of what's going to happen in the law enforcement community with these folks, with their families, it is predictable. And what we say in law enforcement, if it's predictable, it's preventable, or at least some of it is preventable. And we can make some sure predictions on what their future holds. Data collection, we'll be looking at their histories, criminal histories prior to them coming into the program, following them for the next couple of years to see what the recidivism rate is. We'll be looking at their engagement in counseling, treatment after the fact, if they're following through with their medications. We'll be asking questions about their diagnosis, mental health, physical medical conditions, OD history, suicide history, all sorts of things that we'll be looking at. And we're also going to be looking at the dependent children that they have and what their status is when they're entering the program. and if we can see any benefit to a program and maybe lessening the taxing, the tax on the foster care system and the child protection workers. Because I think that's where we're going to see the biggest benefit of this is, yes, it's great to have somebody sober and not come back to us in the criminal justice system, but these families are touching so many other departments in the county, and it just seems like the right thing to do. So that's where I'm at. We haven't actually got it up and running quite yet. Our biggest hiccup right now is that we're in this weird time in the jail. We're getting a new jail medical contract, and we need a medical provider, and we weren't going to renegotiate our current contract when they're up at the end of the year. So we're gonna start campaigning though, marketing within the next week in the jail and talking to some folks and see if we can maybe get some folks started, whether we bring them outside to another medical provider in the community, but we're hoping to get it up and running in short order anyway, and for sure by the first of the year. That's where we're at. Questions, comments?
Judge, I have one.
Yes.
Knowing the increase in the high volume of drugs in St. Croix County, are you anticipating it being budgeted through the county or a continual grant?
This grant goes through July. We've already been told that it'll be good for another year, another July to July cycle. So we anticipate that this will be good through July of '24, and hopefully we'll have the data to see if this is something the county should go with, that it's a benefit. So yeah, it doesn't sound like it's going to be like a tag grant that they run for years and years and years. It's to get programs up and running. I do believe that I've been told by the DOJ that it is their plan to have a MAP program in every jail in the state. So we're kind of on the forefront of that. We're one of 7 right now that received this grant. So it's nice that we have the money to get it up and rolling without the cost of the county.
Is it something the
eventually.
county's considering budgeting for, or just haven't gotten that far yet? Well,
I think for some of them, it's probably the first time they're hearing it, or, so we're not even to that point yet, but I think we need to collect the data to make sure that this is something that should be invested in.
I think it's very important, the consequences and the people that are dying and struggling out there. I think it's a good thing.
Well, interesting enough, I left June 1st, and yeah, we were hearing a little bit about fentanyl. We were coming across it in the county in our drug investigations. And then I come back and I'm talking to officers, and it's, even though methamphetamine is still a lot of people's primary drug or drug of choice, fentanyl is being put in every single thing, and I think we're on a cusp of a new world in the drug world, and there's going to be some dual addictions for sure. So even though people may have, their choice may be methamphetamine, they're going to become addicted quickly to an opiate, and these programs are going to very much be needed.
Ms. Peterson.
Thank you so much for your work on this grant. It is truly essential. And we're talking about a potential way to partner. And we're looking at this really from a multi-pronged approach, both in the jails, but also in an outpatient perspective in the emergency department and through primary care. Our ultimate goal is to really incorporate medication-assisted treatment into primary care so that for patients who need this, it's a part of their routine care and they can receive it as part of their medical home. But just to help share some additional information about medication-assisted treatment, in terms of the medical side of this work, it's best practice that these patients, clients are seen weekly. So it is an intensive program. They need weekly services, and not just the medical side of care. It is really requires wraparound services in the way that Kathy's described. So behavioral health has to be a part of this work. Social work has to be part of this work. I think this is a great way to consider the county peer responders as well, because it's something that has to continue to be supported and partnered from several different angles. Lastly, I'll share in terms of funding is that as a medical society, we're not there yet where this type of treatment is reimbursed. So provider time may be slightly reimbursed, but the rest of the wraparound services are not. And so for the time being, grant-funded programs or otherwise supported programs are the only way that this type of service can be financially supported. So I'm happy to hear that you're asking the questions about what are the long-term plans for the budget, because right now insurance is not appropriately reimbursing this service. So something to work towards, another great Medicaid pilot program potentially, but for right now it's not being financially reimbursed. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments about this program?
I have a couple questions.
Yes.
Real quick, I'll try not to long. I understand you stated with regards to how long somebody needs to be in to basically do this determination, evaluation, medications. And I can understand from the DOC perspective that somebody's serving a sanctioned hold, you understand that they're going to be there for X amount of days and that's a suitable candidate. How are you making a determination about somebody that's just in custody outside of the DOC hold, whether they're going to be there long enough to get the benefit of this program?
By the number of days that they stay, essentially. If they're out on a signature bond the next day, there's no way that we can capture them.
My
That's
if somebody were to get like a $1,000 cash bond, are you saying, well, my guess is they're going to be there long enough, we're going to try it with this person, or what criteria are you using to kind of determine that?
I think they could all use the conversation, and I believe that there'll be daily conversations with folks that are interested in a MAT program, because if we're able to get them in on this arrest, maybe not. If something doesn't change, we know they're probably going to come back to us, and maybe come back to us for longer. I don't have a great answer for you. I've been told that it is for people that are incarcerated, but I've also been told by DOJ that it can be for anybody that's involved in the criminal justice system. So it really comes down to, can we, because there's risk, can we ensure that somebody has detoxed? And if we start giving medications when they haven't been detoxed, that's not a good thing. And that's certainly not the foot that I want to start off on with the new program. So I'm probably going to concentrate on the folks that are in custody a little bit longer.
My second question is, I can see a scenario, perhaps, where as part of the process, that the court say, I'm ordering you to engage and participate in this program, or at least have that conversation, but then you have the idea of voluntariness, and so are you seeing a separation from any court orders, and that this just entirely should be just subject to them making that choice themselves to engage in treatment with you?
That is probably one of the biggest concerns. Judges, I really don't want this on a bail bond because it really needs to be voluntary. And I've also met with probation, talked to them about the MAT grant, and I wouldn't want anyone being told, sign up for MAT or you're getting revoked or you're getting more time incarcerated. I think for it to be successful and people to target the population we want, that they're ready for a change, they want this, it has to be voluntary. It just has to be voluntary.
Judge Waterman.
And just so there's no misunderstandings, judges cannot compel people to engage in medical treatment against their will, except in exceptional circumstances, mental health commitments, and other things like that. We certainly can't do it in a criminal case.
Right.
Judge?
We can say, at least go to the water. You don't have to drink it, but at least get to the water and check it out, so.
And I
Kathy,
have no problem with that.
have you looked at capacity? You know, $150,000 sounds like a lot of money, but knowing what we have as a population which has substance abuse issues, have you looked at capacity? You know,
The grant.
because at $1,100 a pop for, you know, the medication,
Right. Right. And that's a discounted rate that we get for uninsured folks who are in custody. Otherwise, I think it's $1,500. I know for the grant, I put down that we wanted to serve 30 people by the end of July. looking at the screening, and it's only been just less than a week, I think we'll be talking to many more folks than that. So will we catch them on the first time through jail? I don't know. We'll see how many people actually follow through. But I would anticipate that we talk to a lot of folks. So what is capacity? How many people are actually going to follow through to the point of starting medications while they're in jail? How many folks are going to follow through once they get out? I know in Kenosha County, their program has been going since 2019. I believe they've served 234 inmates, and 187 have not come back to jail. So it's fairly successful. And that, not just for that individual, but for all the county resources that deal with this population on a daily basis.
So if someone is interested and participates in the program, my sense is then you would also assist with the triaging to a primary care physician or to behavioral health or something, because it sounds like it's not a one and done.
It is not. We have a partnership with behavioral health already. I've had many conversations with Shar Lopez. We have a relationship with Programs for Change at Hudson, and Programs for Change is at Hudson, Westfields, and in Amory, I believe. So there's 3 places where folks could go to treatment once they're out. But in some of our screening questions that we'll be sitting down with, we'll also be looking at traditional counseling to trauma that these folks have went through and see what's best. But yeah, we will be triaging, and those soft handoffs will be done prior to them leaving the jail is what the plan is.
Yes, Mr. Barrett.
Thank you. There may be opportunities to expand capacity through other funding sources that HHS should have access to. One is the State Opioid Response Grant. We've been a recipient of that grant. In previous years, that last grant ended in September, and we're waiting for the state to issue the next round of proposals, but that also supports medication-assisted treatment. The other opportunity is that the state received a portion of the opioid settlement dollars, about $30 million, and part of that is also dedicated to medication-assisted treatment. How they distribute that or how that's demonstrated in RFPs isn't known yet, but there will be money flowing in towards medication-assisted treatment, and a portion of that is usually dedicated to criminal justice-involved populations. So we anticipate there will be additional funding. If we can use it to supplement this or somehow complement it, we'll do that. And just one last thing, I believe Vivitrol it's the injectable form of naltrexone, but I believe Vivitrol is Medicaid reimbursable. I know some folks in the jail don't have Medicaid, but or none of them do, but it's an $1,100 expense, but I believe, unless I'm wrong, in Wisconsin, Medicaid reimburses for that.
I have been told it's paid for by Medicaid.
Any other questions about this program? Yes, Travis.
One last question is also, given the medical nature of treatment, et cetera, that may be being provided, what's being done with any discussion with regards to release of information of this to be shared with interested parties?
I've been working with Heather from Corp Counsel and getting those signed releases, and whoever we'll be working with in that, they will have a signed release where we can share information, and it's going to allow us to then track for a couple of years as well to make sure that this is a viable program.
And if that information is being released, who are you anticipating that information to be released to?
Probably back to me or whoever's running this program. But if, I could see someone signing up for a program, that we get them started, they're going for a couple months, they fall off, they come back to us, and maybe it's just a re-engagement at that point to what we already had set up previously. There's a ton of scenarios that could be.
And Travis, just to answer your question a little bit further, the release form that we've created initially would be for the inmate to sign a release indicating the information could be exchanged between the jail, the hospitals, Program for Change, the medical provider in the jail, and DHHS and probation and parole. So there is no like release to the district attorney's office or the court. There's an other section we've added if they want it released to their public defender. But it right now would just be the entities that are assisting them with the treatment. So the jail, the hospitals, the medical provider, DOC, I'm trying to think if I remembered it or forgot anybody else. And then there would be a consent form to go along with it, indicating they can disenroll at any time, but they understand then, you know, then the treatment would stop. So there'd be a consent form indicating that it's voluntary, and then a release form. And then all the entities that are working on the program would enter into an MOU or a memorandum of understanding, indicating that information is protected health information, it's confidential, so they can't release it to anyone else without a release, besides the release that's signed, so they can exchange it through those entities. So that's our thought, at least initially, but obviously open to suggestions if you have concerns.
Other questions? And I think, Kathy, I'd be remiss to say that anything this group can do to help, you know, support or partner with you and the jail, with our medical providers, with DHS. I think these are the types of projects that a CJCC should be involved in, at least that's my opinion. So anything, again, as you go forward that you want to bring back or offer suggestions for us to tackle or help you with, don't hesitate.
You're right.
Thank you.
I would just like to thank Tim Kufis from the Sheriff's Office and Char Lopez and Pete Van Dusart from Programs for Change. We've been working on this. Started the conversations early last spring, but really everyone has been great, and it's moved along pretty seamlessly. I mean, the biggest hiccup right now is the jail medical and actually getting people into the program. So it seems like the timing is just near perfect.
Thank you very much. Next, we're going to have a presentation. We originally thought it was going to be by two individuals, Scott Walstoni and Eric Logan. Scott is a recent graduate of our treatment court program. For those of you that know him or happen to be at his graduation, you know he's a very outgoing, gregarious, engaging, whatever other adjectives I could use to describe him. Unfortunately, he's sick today, but we are certainly privileged to have Eric Logan with us from the Salvation Army program. I will tell you that that's a program that the courts are very familiar with in terms of people who go there for treatment, support, assistance, and at least what I believe are the benefits that we have seen for those in that program. So without further delay, Mr. Logan.
All right, thank you for your time here. Yeah, my name is Eric Logan. I'm the Assistant Program Administrator there at the Salvation Army. Just some quick facts about the Salvation Army. Through COVID and our remodel last year, we had 373 men came through our program. And after 30 days, after they've been there for 30 days, we have a 35% completion rate, which is extremely high when you're talking as far as treatment and rehabilitation. And then real quick is most people, when they think of the Salvation Army, they think of the red kettles, the disaster relief, and that type of stuff. We're not that part. We're the adult rehabilitation center, and we're fully funded by our thrift stores. So if you've ever shopped in a Salvation Army thrift store, all the money that goes from there is what pays for our center. So we're no burden on the state, doesn't cost any money for an individual to go there. The adult rehabilitation, we're a long-term faith-based residential social program model focused on recovery for men, struggling with substance abuse disorders, facing homelessness, transitioning for correctional facilities, and we're 6 months to 1 year. Our program model is based on work therapy, substance abuse education, spiritual counseling, and living skills. Our program is also geared to people with the first step out of a correctional facility or coming from jail as a deterrent from prison, like myself. That's what happened with me 5 years ago, is they said that I could go to a treatment center, and they sent me to the Salvation Army, and I completed all those probations and all that stuff and successfully completed everything early. We do want to strengthen partners between Minnesota and Wisconsin. Community supervision is a big deal. 90% of our men in our program have some type of criminal activity that go on, so we're very familiar with the criminal system and dealing with probation officers and everything else and any requirements that anybody needs or anything like that. We're feel free to communicate. They do sign all ROIs as soon as they come into the building so that there's no miscommunication between anything. They have highly restricted in-house movements. Since our renovation, we now have these key cards. Everybody gets signed a key card, so they're going throughout the building. We know where they're at all times. The restriction, we can tailor any restrictions that we need based on the client when he comes into our program. If somebody says, well, we don't feel like he should be out in the community for a good 6 months or 3 months until we feel like he's been at a certain date, we can do that. We have regular communications and progress reports for staff. We have a certain a software that was designed for the Salvation Army. It's called Service Points, where we put everything that we do, all of our case notes, the UAs that we use, which are forensic UAs. All of that stuff is in the Service Point system, so we can give any type of progress reports that are needed at any time throughout their time at the center. We have been working with Minnesota Correctional Facilities. I have been talking to Dunn County Jail, and I'm trying to work my way through the jail county systems just because I want to get in there and try and let the guys know they have to choose to come to our program most of the time, so I want them to know about the option that they have. We are a 6 to 12 months program. 6 months is the minimum, 12 months is the maximum, but we do have other things called Pathway Forward. That's another house that's with the Salvation Army. That's another year of case management. It's like a sober house that they can move into, that we have an on-site case manager there that deals with them, so they still have case management after that point, which is up to another year. Plus, we have a mission integration house for sober housing, and we partner with a lot of different sober houses. Our model is for them to go through the program, which is a 6-month minimum program. I encourage them to take the 10 months of the program to really work on what they need to do and get everything they need to get done, and then they can move into something that's called TLS, which I'll discuss here in a second. The ARC program provides housing and meals, all the clothing that they're going to need. They can come in with absolutely nothing, and they can come in right off the street. It's no Rule 25. We're entirely funded by our thrift stores, so it's no burden to the state or any government facility. We have canteen, we provide them laundry facilities. It's a work therapy and job skills training. We're a rehabilitation center, so we want them to go into what we have them do is what we call work therapy. And so it's like a real world situations where they can do stuff, and they can, if they have behavior issues or something like that, we can address it on site, work through it, and get through that stuff so they can do that sober. We have NA, AA, CBT groups. We are a faith-based life recovery curriculum, but our 12 steps is ingrained into what we do here. In order to go, we have 6 levels in the program. In order to go from level 2, you have to have a sponsor. We work the 12 steps of AA. We believe in the 12 steps of AA. You have to go to outside meetings. We want them to separate and get a community of AA meetings. They have to have a sponsor, and they have to work the 4th and 5th step, which is a big one if anybody knows about the 12 steps of AA, to go to level 4. We have spiritual counseling, on-site therapists. So we actually have a partner with a different company that comes in for clinical therapy for some of the guys that have a lot of trauma that they're trying to work through, and we've noticed that. Then they can sign up for Joe, and he's an amazing person. We have psychiatric medication management, case management, mentors and sponsors, chaplaincy, recreation and physical fitness, job skills and employment networking. And there's always a Salvation Army, because we do have the thrift stores, we're always hiring. So we have a lot of partners that come in too, and it's a good stepping stone to get into the community. And it's no cost to the program participant. Unless they get, there's only one thing, if they get Social Security in Minnesota, you have to, if you have it going into a treatment program, they take a certain portion of that because of its Social Security. Who qualifies is any man. We got a guy who's near 70 years old right now, so the 65 is not really what it is. 18 and up. That has any type of struggles with substance abuse disorders, and that can participate in work therapy. The only thing that disqualifies somebody is the sex offenses and arson are the only 2 things that we can't take. They don't have insurance, no Rule 25, no income requirements, no cost to the county or state or federal agencies, which is a big one most of the time when we talk. We're talking about burden to the state. It's rehabilitation for the mind, the body, and the spirit. The rehabilitation for the mind is the substance abuse and living classes. We have mental health services and the recreation and social activities. Substance abuse and life skills classes, these are some of the classes that they go to. Substance abuse disorder education, relapse prevention, in-house 12-step studies, AANAs, anger management, life management, finance management. We also partner with GED classes. We've had 4 guys get their GEDs last year. Job skills and exit planning and employment networking. This is the journal series that they're required to do. Sometimes they could relate this to a COG skills class type of thing. These journals are more geared towards, the thinking, the criminal thinking and the spiritual thinking. It's cognitive behavioral curricular targeting, violence, personal control, problem-solving skills, and conflict resolution. We do a lot of recreational and social activities. I'll try to go through these in the interest of time. This is camp that we go to twice a year. We do bowling twice a month. We go on day trips. We have a recovery softball league. We do the local sporting events. You got to have fun in your recovery. Otherwise, it's not going to be, you're not going to feel like if you're just grinding it out all the time, it's really hard to just really enjoy things. And a lot of times people that come to us haven't enjoyed life very much. They've been stuck in addiction for a long time. It's rehabilitation for the body because we provide nutritious meals, regulated sleep schedules, clean and comfortable housing, clothing is provided. We have a running club. This is MIMS. It's another club that comes in. That's a program that we have. It's a Mile in My Shoes program that comes in, and they do running 3 times a week, or you can walk. So we got guys in there that just walk. But it's just a program with run mentors, and they've been that's the team right there of the guys that are in the program there. Rehabilitation for the spirit. Daily morning devotions, weekly spiritual recovery studies, weekly worship services, spiritual counseling, centering, prayer, and meditation. I like this quote. So people do not decide their futures, they decide their habits, and their habits decide their futures. We are rehabiting, you could say we are a rehabiting place because we want them to continue over the 6 months, to continue to get up at 6 a.m., continue to do things they need to do, make their beds, do simple things. It's about the little things we talk about all the time and the willingness to do those little things, because if they're not willing to do those little things, what else are they not willing to do? The work therapy offers a place for them to grow and deal with situations, because we get a lot of times where guys come downstairs and they're like, man, and they freak out. And we have supervisors and people in place, and then they go up and talk to their counselor, and we really work through what the problem was. And then normally we work through all that stuff, and that's been very helpful. Because in a work therapy in a work environment, you would lose your job with a lot of things that work out like that. We have food service, production assistant helpers, janitorial, call center, maintenance, retail store, warehouse operations, and mechanic helper. And there's always employment for the Salvation Army. And there's a clear definition between what the beneficiaries are doing and what the paid employees are doing. So the TLS status is what I was talking about earlier when I talked about the 10-month program, right? If they complete the program and they've obtained employment and they've established a bank account and they've identified a sober living place after this, they can discuss a sustainability plan with me. I manage TLS, and they qualify for 60 days rent-free in the building, which is kind of like an aftercare program you can think of. As you go into TLS, you get 60 days rent-free. We provide them with the lunches that they're going to need to go out, so they don't have to pay for anything, so they can save up money and move on from there to the sober house. We have a big alumni fellowship group. A lot of the alumni are there, and they come all the time. Especially, it's great because they can come up and eat food whenever they want, and the free food is a big deal sometimes. We have a lot of volunteers that come into our program. We're blessed with a lot of good volunteers that come into our program. And we have a lot of different partners. We partner with ReNet, we partner with Nautilus Outcomes, the Rise Up Project. Genoa Health is another one that we partner with. The Minnesota, the Mile in My Shoes, the Alpha is another one, the R3, and Lost Sheep Ministries. And then just to recap real quick, it says no insurance under Rule 25, 6-month to 1-year structured program. We have case management, work therapy, and workplace experiences, substance abuse classes, life skills classes, and spiritual rehabilitation for the mind, mental health and medical accessibility, and then exit planning and housing. And we've really strengthened our exit planning over the last year. Now, we've gone through a lot of change over the last 1.5 to 2 years. Everybody was with the treatment and rehabilitation. COVID was hard to get through. And we were also doing a $38 million remodel to our building. So we have a brand new building. I would be happy to give anybody a tour here if you want. We're only 30 minutes away. If you want to come down and see what we got going on there, that's the best way to grasp what we do there. I can talk about it all day, but when you can come see it. We make change, and like you said, Scott, that was a very good description of Scott. He's kind of very energetic. He came through our program. He's our front desk manager, and now he's going to be working as our assistant intake coordinator. So we believe in the men that come through our program, and we try to build them up as best we can. And most of the people that came through their work there have went through the program. So I think that we could just open it up for questions.
Yes.
Do you work with veterans with PTSD or anything of that sort, or no?
Yeah, we actually have, I think we just actually, last night in chapel, we gave everybody an ovation. We have 10 veterans in our program right now. We partner with whatever they need, so we can send them to the VA for whatever they need to get, and we'll try and help anybody the best we can.
So you work with the VA departments?
Yep.
Great.
Yeah, we will send them to the VA. We work with Hennepin, HCMC, and we got a lot of different partners to try and get them the medical needs that they need.
Other questions? Again, kind of the typical scenario for us is we have someone in the jail who is there for a while, generally on a cash bail. They'll make application to their Salvation Army. They're accepted. Their staff comes over. They pick them up from our jail. Our rule is there are no stops between Hudson and the facility. And then we require, likewise, if they abscond or leave, that Salvation Army is to notify us. We then try to coordinate our hearings to their schedule, but they'll provide transportation back to court. And as I said, it's a program, at least, that all my experience have been very positive. So we thank you for what you're doing and that population. Any thought ever of having women in a program or trying to offer something, because that is an equally critical need?
Yeah, I wish we had the space for it. I mean, our administrator, Tom Canfield, he's been working on things to figure it out. Right now, we're just the men's program. They do have women's. Well, there's 140 ARCs throughout the United States, so this is a big deal. And we're separated by divisions. And there is women's programs, but they're not anywhere near here. I could probably get some information, and they would pay for bus tickets to send somebody there if they were going to go out of state, but that's a little different scenario.
Any other questions or comments? Yes, Travis.
Can you just give us a quick update? What does the application process look like? What does the applicant need for information to start that process?
Okay, so I brought applications with me, but it's just a basic thing that basically gives their information, and then most of the time there's what they're on probation for, what their criminal history what is, because normally mostly it's criminal, and then it's just, that's basically it. It's a real simple application. It's a page and a half, and then a signature in the back.
And what is once an application is sent and processed, what is the wait list process time that you'll be looking at?
We could get it done in 4 hours. We could have them, they can literally, we get guys that come in off the street, and we take them right in. It's a simple process. The only thing we have to check is we have to run them against the national registry to see if they have any sex crimes. That's it. They have to register. That's the main thing. That's the bar that we've set, that the Salvation Army as an the command set that we have to check through. Otherwise, they come right in. We'd like them to come in with 30 days of medication, but we can sign them all up. We have Minnesota. We have Minnesota Care. So that's one of the things we sign up for everybody, and they get Minnesota Care right away. We transfer a lot of people that have Badger Care to Minnesota Care just because it's a lot simpler, and then they get a lot of benefits from that, because then they are a resident of Minnesota. So there is, if they were in the jail system, they would need an interstate compact, and we've done that many times too, if that's the way we have to go. We're willing to do whatever we need to do to try and help men get recovered, because if I can do it, I know, and Scott, me and Scott, we got a lot of other success stories there that can do it, and it's the perfect environment. We have 55 men in there right now. We can hold 148. So there's a lot of room. We're trying to get as best as we can to get more people involved and just be aware. A lot of people aren't aware that we have this building and this place and the program set up where it's at. And just when they find out, it's like, I'm just in touch with a lot of different drug court people in Hennepin County, Wright County. I'm working a lot with trying to get in with all the drug courts that I possibly can, because that's that's the people we need to reach.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next is I'm sorry, Ms. Maltoff.
I got a card I can give you, and then I got a bunch of brochures I can leave on that table back there, so if anybody wants a brochure, we have all the information right there, too.
Thank you. Next is a presentation from Anna Johnson, who is affiliated with the Butterfly Path.
Nope. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Anna Johnson. I graduated from Hudson High School in 2013. My parents, Troy and Jennifer Johnson, also graduated, and so did my brothers. I currently reside in River Falls, but a little bit kind of about me, I guess. I work full-time in marketing and advertising. I'm currently at Warner Stellian at their corporate office, so after this, I'll jet over to the cities. But I started the Butterfly Path 5 years ago through my own struggles with mental health. I've had my fair share of visits to inpatient facilities, and through that, my family has been very we kind of talk internally about, just different struggles and what my mom's a first grade teacher. She's been in the district for about 33 years in the Hudson School District, and so I kind of hear what she sees and the needs that parents kind of come to her. I started a blog when I was 20 and kind of basically said, I have depression, I have anxiety, things like that. And that really kind of sparked conversations because I was just really involved in the community, very happy. I was, but so you kind of, the stigma was still out there. So with that, a lot of people started coming to us for resources as a family, and just through frustration, if I see a barrier, I like to plow through it. I don't stop. And it might take me a while, but that's okay. And so I just got really frustrated with the barriers that our community was seeing with mental health resources, and even kind of hearing from my parents' perspective of trying to find me help in college. We had the financial resources, we had the insurance, things like that, and it was still difficult to find help for myself. And so with that, I started, kind of thinking. I was an advocate. I spoke out in the community. And then 5 years ago in June, right after my little brother graduated from Hudson High School, my dad died by suicide. And that was really traumatic, actually. But to have a mentally healthy man die by suicide was really shocking to me, and I kind of took a step back in my advocacy because I was really confused on, how can someone who had all of the mental health resources, things like that, a man who calmed me down from a panic attack a week prior, how can someone just get up and, drive an hour and a half to Frederick, Wisconsin. So with that, the following October, I started the Butterfly Path, and we have helped in the last 5 years. We funded $45,000 in therapy for community members when insurance or any out-of-pocket costs get in the way. I'm currently working with state representatives to get suicide research because I'm very passionate about helping. I don't want any other family to go through what our family did, and I understand that is inevitable, but unfortunately, but I am very passionate about diving more into the human brain and understanding why things happen the way they do. And through my own, research, there's not a lot of research on the brain and suicide because the brain is so complex, and we just need more preventative measures, but preventative measures only go so far. With mental health, when the brain takes over, it's a very scary place. Last time I was in a mental health inpatient was in COVID, or during COVID, and so that's when we also launched our assistance request program, and the timing was perfect because that's when a lot of people lost their insurance and jobs and things like that, so we did see, that's when we kind of helped majority of people. So right now we partner with a business in New Richmond, Borman Counseling. We partner with Couples and Family Therapy here in Hudson, and I'm working with adult teen counseling in River Falls, to get them on board too with our assistance request program, where we provide therapy scholarships. And so people who have that financial barrier, they can simply apply. I've never turned anyone down. No one, knock on wood, has taken advantage of that, of our program. And we've helped people from ages 5 to 81, from all over. We kind of get all the demographics from the businesses. And so that was really eye-opening. And then some people we've helped multiple times. Some people have just, because I am a firm believer also in even one therapy session can help someone feel human again and get them back, on the path that maybe they need. And so we've had some people just utilize our services once or multiple times. So we also advocate, and we also are a resource to help refer people. So if some people don't know where to go, we have a plethora of businesses and resources that I've networked with and connected with to get them help and get them in, because some people might have the financial resources. So that's kind of what the Butterfly Path does. I would love to just be a resource for the county and to just be able to, like I met with Turning Point a couple weeks ago and toured their facility, and they were also struggling with mental health resources. They had maybe like 3 that were just, the common ones. And so we are also becoming a resource for other nonprofits as well to help refer people, because what I learned too, which was really eye-opening, is that maybe a victim might be safe, but they just don't have, they're not allowed to get a job, or their financial resources are restrained. So we're going to be a resource for them too. So that's kind of a little bit about the Butterfly Path. But if anyone has questions or comments, I could talk about it for days, so I really shortened this down. But yes.
Like with Anna, do you have materials or things that you could get to Phil so we can circulate those?
Yeah, and I mailed stuff to Tina too, so she has a bunch of our flyers and brochures. And then we don't have a physical location, it's all housed online. And so thebutterflypath.org is where you'll find us. And then we also we house resources there too, so people can either fill out our assistance request form, or they can, just browse the resources that are available, and I'm constantly adding to that too. And then, all the contact information, I'm the one who fields that. So we're just we're a smaller but mighty organization. So.
Any other questions or comments for Anna? Thank you so much, and thank you for sharing your story. I think we could describe today's meeting as the theme was passion. This young lady's passion, Eric's passion, Chief Deputy's passion for what they're doing, and I really appreciate your what you're offering. Mental health, substance abuse. That's unfortunately where we're at right now in our society. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you all.
Subcommittee reports. Executive, there's really nothing to report out. Pretty much what you see as our agenda today is what we talk about. Executive committee. Criminal justice, Judge Waterman.
We continue to work on pretrial release conditions and monitoring with Justice Services. Carl Anderson, Travis Sartorius, Shelby, myself, both work on that monthly. The other project that we're going to initiate is to tie our subcommittee's work with the county strategic plan. Specifically, we'll be looking at matching up county resources to county needs. Supervisor Fiedler had suggested that we look at the data first and see what the data tells us. Things like number of crimes, arrests, what are these crimes for, what are the arrests for, what's being prosecuted, what's being convicted, what goes to supervision with DOC, who goes to jail, and then take a look at some numbers and then make some judgments from there about what additional work might need to be done.
Questions of Judge Waterman. So whatever we just heard, it reminds me, I was at Judicial Conference last week, and 2 or 3 times we'd have these plenary sessions with 200 judges sitting around, and someone's phone who had Alexa would say, I didn't understand that during some presentation. So anyway, just a little sidestep there. Domestic violence, Judge Vlack.
Well, first of all, I cannot remember the last time I was at this meeting, so it's good to
Welcome
see a
back.
lot of faces that But I'd like to thank everybody in the subcommittee, but if I'll forget somebody. But we've accomplished a lot. We have been meeting every other month. We've decided to meet every 3 months. Next meeting is January 25th. Two primary things are a kind of a working plan for our subcommittee. We're trying to break them into subcommittees and look at what we can do, and also we're doing a case study project. We've been meeting in the room across from the county treasurer. Last time we met, we had so many people who had to come in here. It was just overwhelming. So a lot of interest, and if you can join us, January 25th.
Any questions to Judge Vlack about domestic violence subcommittee? Treatment court, Kate. As Judge Nordstrand is someplace in Florida. I'll just leave it there.
He's lucky. So right now with treatment court, we are going through another kind of phase of a whole bunch of graduations within the last 2 months, which is great. And then that means that now we have an influx of new participants coming into our program, just 3 in the last 2 weeks. So now that we have a case manager, it'll be easier to get more people in, because as the last few months have gone, it has been a little bit of a backward direction with, we have a lot of participants right now, so they are a main priority instead of getting new people in. So now that that's happening, we're up and running. We have a committee meeting next week, I think, and a lunch meeting, so we are making those a priority now to get our policy and procedure handbook up to date.
Thank you. And phase 1, phase 2, are we pretty much done with phase 2?
Oh, for track 2. So
Track 2,
yes,
I'm sorry.
so we have our 2 tracks. Our OWI track is now integrated into our track 1. So we will still have the high risk, high need OWI cases, but we just don't have as many right now.
Questions of Kate about treatment court? And then behavioral health, Bob.
Thank you, Your Honor. We last met in September, late September, and our next meeting will be November 28th. At the last meeting, we examined how those ARPA-funded positions are functioning. We're going to look at data in our next meeting to see if there's an impact from those positions, specifically the co-responders and community-based case managers. On top of that, we looked at the spending that the state intends, how the state intends to spend those opioid settlement dollars that they received as a part of the settlement. It was approved by the Finance Committee, so there was a set list of things that the state is planning to use that money towards. They did remove some prevention and public health dollars from the original request. And we discussed withdrawal management a little bit. We're still in the process of looking at new ways in which to approach that topic with some of our community partners. Also at the next meeting, real quick, there was a report released at the end of October from the National Judicial Task Force on state courts' response to mental health. Chief Young from River Falls and myself went to a regional conference in Vermont last spring. This report is a culmination of several regional meetings that states or regions have held. With it, or included in it, are recommendations around how to develop diversionary programs and systems of care within counties, within states, that better address those folks who cycle through courts, jails, and emergency departments with behavioral health conditions. The idea here is to better marry behavioral health with the criminal justice system and find systems that work well for preventing those folks from going to jail and getting them the help they need. So there's a final report. I shared it with Supervisor Fiedler and a few others, and Phil. It's in my computer, so I can share it with anyone that is interested in looking at it. But I think that would be a focus of our next meeting as well, to start examining that. The state of Wisconsin, under Chief Justice Ziegler, will have a state conference sometime next year. I'll have to fill you in more as I get more details on that, again, looking at this very topic. So thank you.
Thank you. Questions of Bob? Thank you. That completes our committee reports. It also completes our formal agenda. I know Phil yesterday, I think, sent out a blast email to all of us regarding, again, the county's mission statement and how this body can maybe come up with ideas or suggestions or plans to implement the county's plan in terms of the work that we do. So I would ask each of you to give that some thought before our next meeting in January, and we'll do some brainstorming at that meeting about, are we meeting that particular goal, that mission statement, and what are, again, some ideas that we might want to float. And especially, as I will continue to harp, our community members are essential to this process. You're the community we serve. And so if there are ideas in terms of the mission statement, your involvement in this group that you think we're missing or that you think would be a need, please come with those to that meeting in January. With that said, are there any announcements or correspondence to share? The only announcement is that I would entertain a motion that Phil be prohibited from bringing an Ohio State mug with him to the next meeting. Other than that, hearing none, we will stand adjourned. Thank you all so much.